Pliers are a familiar tool in many families, especially for those who often garden or repair furniture. In particular, pruning pliers are a great assistant to help trim branches quickly and neatly. However, after a period of use, the pliers' blades will become blunt, the metal surface will easily become dull due to contact with tree sap, soil, and moisture. At that time, cutting branches becomes more difficult. The branches do not break cleanly, but are crushed or fall down, wasting both effort and time. My pruning pliers are also in the same situation, so today I will share with you a simple way to sharpen the pliers. Just need a few easy-to-find items to help the pliers shine and cut smoothly like new. To start the sharpening process, I first need to disassemble the pruning pliers into individual parts. Disassembling will help me clean and sharpen more thoroughly, accessing the internal positions that are difficult to handle when the pliers are still assembled in one piece. In this step, I will use another pair of pliers, not pruning pliers, to help remove the screw. The reason is because my pruning pliers are dull and the surface may be slippery due to plastic or dirt. If I try to use it to remove it, it will be both inconvenient and easy to scratch. I choose a pair of pointed pliers with a small nose and good grip, helping to grip the screw tightly and rotate it easily. I firmly grip the head of the screw and slowly rotate it counterclockwise to loosen it. Once the screw is loose, I completely disassemble and separate each part of the pliers: the two pliers, the spring, and the joints. At this point, I can clearly see the inner surface and the cutting blade, which is dull and no longer sharp. After disassembling each part of the pliers, I will proceed to soak them in Coca-Cola. I prepare a tray or small basin, large enough to fit both pliers and the disassembled parts. Then, I pour Coca-Cola in so that it covers all the metal parts. You may not know, but Coca-Cola contains phosphoric acid and a small amount of citric acid, which are ingredients that can remove rust, plaque, and tarnish on the metal surface. When soaked, the acid molecules will act on the oxidation layer, slowly softening them and peeling them off the steel surface. I will let the pliers soak for about 30 minutes to 1 hour, depending on the level of tarnish. If the pliers are rusty or dirty for a long time, you can soak them longer, but you should not leave them overnight because the acid can corrode the metal surface. During the soaking time, you can occasionally rotate or flip the pliers so that the solution comes into contact with all surfaces. After a while of soaking, I will see the surface of the pliers brighter. The dull and rusty layer begins to peel off. However, for the best effect, I will combine the step of sanding immediately after soaking to completely remove the remaining stains, making the pliers brighter and smoother. After soaking the pliers in Coca-Cola and seeing that the tarnish has partially peeled off, I will move on to the sanding step to completely clean and make the metal surface brighter. First, I prepare a sheet of fine grit sandpaper, usually from 400 to 600. This type of sandpaper is strong enough to remove the dirt, but still smooth enough not to scratch the surface of the pliers deeply. I cut the sandpaper in half to make it easier to hold, then fold it into several layers. Folding the paper helps the sanding surface to be flatter and creates a firm feeling when operating. I will start sanding each side of the pliers. For each side, I do about 15 to 20 strokes in the same direction to ensure the surface is evenly sanded, avoiding leaving diagonal scratches. When I finish sanding one side, I flip it over to sand the other side, then switch to the other side of the pliers. During the sanding process, I occasionally dip the pliers into the soaked Coca-Cola to wet the surface. This helps reduce friction, makes the sandpaper move more smoothly, and washes away the small metal fragments that have just been ground. In addition, Coca-Cola continues to support the removal of stubborn tarnish, combined with the rubbing force for faster cleaning results. This sanding step not only helps to completely remove the tarnish, rust, and old stains, but also makes the metal surface smoother, making it easier and more effective to sharpen the pliers in the next step. At the end of the sanding process, I will wipe the pliers clean with a soft cloth to completely remove the grinding dust, preparing for the blade sharpening step. After the pliers surface is clean and shiny, I will move on to the step of sharpening the pliers blade to restore its sharpness. I put the pliers on a soft towel to dry them. In this step, I will use a very familiar object, a coin, combined with toothpaste. First, I take out a coin with a slightly rough edge or a prominent ridge, because this edge will act as a light grinding surface. Next, I squeeze a sufficient amount of toothpaste onto the surface of the pliers blade. Toothpaste contains microscopic abrasive particles, often used to polish teeth, but when applied to metal, they can help lightly abrade the dull metal layer and make the pliers blade sharper. I use a cotton swab to spread the toothpaste evenly over the entire cutting edge of the pliers, making sure the toothpaste covers both sides and the cutting edge. Then, I place the coin on the edge of the pliers blade and sharpen it from top to bottom, from inside to outside. I do each sharpening about 10 to 15 times, keeping a steady hand to ensure the blade is sharpened evenly. When I finish one side, I rotate the pliers and continue to sharpen the other side in the same way. While sharpening, the toothpaste will combine with the friction force from the coin, gently removing the old worn metal layer on the cutting edge and creating a new, sharper cutting surface. The coin has a moderate hardness, does not damage the blade structure, but is still sharp enough to sharpen. This is why this method is very safe and effective for pliers that are dull but have not yet chipped. When I have finished sharpening both sides, I put all the pliers parts in a basin of clean water, use a toothbrush to scrub thoroughly, remove all the toothpaste and tiny metal fragments. Finally, I dry them completely with a paper towel, place them on a soft towel, and reassemble the parts as before, preparing to check the new sharpness of the pliers. After the pliers have been sharpened and cleaned, I will reassemble them to complete the job. First, I place the two pliers parallel to each other, aligning the joints so that the screw holes are aligned. Next, I put the spring in the correct position between the two pliers, making sure the spring is firmly fixed so that when squeezed open, the pliers operate smoothly. Once everything is in place, I use screws and washers to secure the two pliers. I turn the screws slowly, not too tight at first, so that I can adjust the joint to move smoothly, then tighten it to fix it completely. At this point, I try to squeeze and release the pliers a few times to check the elasticity and fit between the two cutting blades. If the squeeze feels gentle, the blades close together and are not crooked, then it is installed correctly. Now comes the important test step. Try cutting the tree branch. I chose a fresh branch of moderate size, placed it in the middle of the pliers blade, and squeezed with moderate force. Immediately, the branch was cut neatly and decisively, without any fraying or bruising. I continued to try, with a few larger branches and even dry branches. The result was still very sharp, cutting smoothly with just one squeeze. Finally, I took the pliers to the garden to try actual pruning. Small branches, large branches, or even dense branches were all handled quickly. The smooth and neat cutting feeling showed that the pliers' blades had been restored to almost new condition. So, with just a few simple steps and available tools, the initially dull, discolored pliers became shiny, sharp, and ready to accompany me in my gardening work. So, with just a few simple steps, my old pliers are sharp and shiny like new. Hopefully, this tip will help you save time, money, and always have good tools for gardening. If you find it useful, don't forget to like and share so more people know.